Time for the team of the season so far. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Hope you all had a very Merry Christmas indeed. But of course, as we know, the football continued over the festive period and we are now into the midway point of the season. 19 games have been played by most of the teams in the Premier League, shall I say. And I believe it is now time to do a Premier League team of the season so far. Obviously, like I say, midway point of the season, it's going to be good to recognise some of the teams that are doing well and some of the individual players that have also been doing well across the first half of the 2023-24 campaign. As always with these kinds of things, this will be my personal opinion, but I want to know yours. So get involved in the comment section down below. Your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, and your own personal team of the season so far down below in the comment section. Would love to hear from you all. Otherwise, leave a like on the video if you're enjoying it or have enjoyed it at the end of the video. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, or if you're new. Both things will always and very greatly appreciated as always. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk the Premier League team of the season so far. And we're starting off with the goalkeeper, of course, in this man, Alisson freaking Becker. My goalkeeper. The best goalkeeper in the world, in my opinion. Alisson Becker, an incredible, fantastic goalkeeper he is. And I have to say, he's been incredible this season. There's no doubt about it. Liverpool would be worse off without this guy in goal. But I have to say that there is an honourable mention and a brilliant big shout out for a certain goalkeeper at Tottenham named Vicario. I think Vicario has been excellent this season and I think he is well worthy of a shout out in this capacity. I just think Alisson is just that little bit better. And it's nothing to take away from Vicario. I think Alisson's the best goalkeeper in the world. And therefore, that is why I believe Vicario deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. I think he's performed well above expectation, well above what anybody else had expected of him. But I just think Alisson has just been performing once again at another top quality level. And the reason why Liverpool are, at the time of recording, top of the table, but of course that could change with Arsenal's result later on this week. The reason why they are there is a big factor down to this man here. So I think Alisson just about gets the nod, but there is a well-worthy case to argue that Vicario has been outstanding so far this season and deserves to be within the conversation indeed. As does another Tottenham player for the right-back situation, but I am going to give it to Trent Alexander-Arnold. There may be a little bit of bias there. I'm not going to lie to you. There may be a little bit of bias there in terms of picking Trent over anybody else. But I think Trent has still been outstanding nonetheless. I still think Trent has been phenomenal in what he offers going forward, and I think what we've seen this season defensively is a much more improved Trent Alexander-Arnold. Yes, there are going to be moments where he's going to get ran at. There are going to be moments where he doesn't look as stable defensively as he would offensively. Yes, there are going to be those types of moments, but I think what we've seen this season from Trent going forward has been a vast, even by his high standards, has been a vast improvement, given the way that he's adapted very comfortably and very well to the new role that he's playing at Liverpool as this more inverted fullback. Obviously, defensively, there are still certain question marks, but I still think he has improved defensively, and I still think a lot of people don't want to give him the defensive credit that he deserves. I still think that this season he has been defensively pretty solid. He's become more well-rounded, more well-adjusted. Like I say, it's not the complete deal yet. He's not the complete kind of defensive player, but there have been vast improvements, and you'd have to be extremely stubborn to deny that. You'd have to be extremely stubborn to not see past anything like that, and obviously the defensive capabilities of Trent Alexander-Arnold, as well as his offensive ability as well. I did mention a Tottenham fullback who deserves an honourable mention. I've got to go with Pedro Porro. I think that he deserves to be within the conversation. I'm not a massive fan of Porro. I still think there are question marks to do with him, but I can't deny that Ange Postecoglou has got him playing at a very consistent level this season, and I think he deserves to be in this conversation as well. But I just think that Trent offers just that little bit more, especially when going forward, and has proven so time and time again this season. Trent Alexander-Arnold, for me, gets the nod at right back. Centre-back pairing. Look, I think there can only be one centre-back pairing, and that's not to say that there aren't honourable mentions to this. Ezri Konsa of Aston Villa, for example. I think for the first part of the season, Joachim Andersen of Crystal Palace was a very consistent performer as well. I think Mickey van der Ven before his injury was fantastic. I think Sven Botman was fantastic, but of course he's had a massive injury that's impacted his season. So I think technically, sort of by default, these two men right here deserve to get the nod, and I don't think there is many people that will argue with this pairing as the centre-back partnership. Saliba's continued to go from strength to strength. Saliba's continued to show vast improvement in that Arsenal back line and has proved to be a vital and consistent member of the heart of the Arsenal defence, whilst Virgil van Dijk is back to his best. Obviously, by his high standards that he's set previously, he's obviously not going to reach the peak of that, but he is still proving that with that Liverpool captaincy now around his arm, with last season being a forgettable campaign by his standards, he has very much improved this season. He's very much back to his best. He's very much back to the Virgil van Dijk that we have seen, known, and have praised so much for down the years, whether it be as a Liverpool player or as a Southampton or Celtic player. This guy is back to his best. And I, for one, am loving every second of it. He's back to his commanding best. He's back to being a leader, back to being an absolute destroyer at the heart of the Liverpool defence, back to being a intelligent, positionally awareness key figure in that Liverpool team. Everything about his game has very much improved from last season and has got back to that high standard that he has set for himself time and time again in previous years. And Saliba, look, he's not far away. He's not that far away from being on Virgil van Dijk's level of where he is right now. Some way to go as to where Van Dijk was at his peak, at the peak of his powers. But let's face it, Saliba will get there with a little bit more time. Saliba has been excellent this season. Take nothing away from him. He's proven time and time again he is a key part of that Arsenal back four. And again, long may it continue because he is looking extremely brilliant right now. Moving on to the left back situation, we finally have a Tottenham player that's made it in. Destiny Udogie. I think this is a pretty foregone conclusion, to be honest. I don't think left back has been oozing with a lot of consistent performers in this particular position. But Destiny Udogie has really taken this by the scruff of the neck and really gone to town on this left back position and is enjoying life right now under Ange Postecoglou. This guy, he is a little bit rash. He's still a little rough around the edges, as you would expect for a player of his age. I think certain times he may have been a bit fortunate to have got away with certain challenges and fortunate to have gotten away with certain other things that may have seen him get a red card for 2 bookable offences, for example, in certain games. But I think his all-round game, other than the slight rashness that, of course, he is going to show at his age, is looking extremely exciting if you are a Tottenham fan right now. Whether it's defensively, he's pretty solid. Whether it's going forward, he's very exciting to watch, and he's obviously very influential in this Ange Postecoglou system, which is very fluid, very attacking. This guy certainly has been a very consistent performer for Tottenham and for the rest of the Premier League as a whole, and I think that this guy only deserves to be mentioned in this kind of category, in this scenario. And I think that he's been brilliant. And you know what, for Spurs, obviously they'll be hoping it continues. So yeah, Udogie for me has been a standout performer this season, and has been obviously a standout in terms of obviously breaking through as a youngster, and obviously into this league where he wasn't necessarily a breakout performer before. So fair play to him, fair play for Ange Postecoglou for sticking by him. I think he's been brilliant all season round. Now, CDM is where it gets a little bit interesting because there could have been a fair few categories. I've gone with Douglas Luiz, and I think Douglas Luiz is, outside of maybe Rodri and Declan Rice, arguably the best CDM in the Premier League. Outside of those two in particular, I think he's probably the best. I think you can maybe argue maybe one or two others maybe, but I think this guy has been the best. And I think that overall this season, I think he's been a better performer than some other CDMs. And I think that in this Unai Emery system, I think he's become a real general in this midfield. I think he's become a real leader, and I think he's really stepped up under Unai Emery's management in doing this. Now, I could have easily gone for Declan Rice in this position, but Declan Rice still is in the team. A bit of a spoiler alert, but he is in the midfield. Reason I've gone for Douglas Luiz in this is just because I think that his leadership skills have improved. I think that him taking the ball by the horns, by everything by the scruff of the neck in terms of the Aston Villa setup, being a very major part of this Unai Emery setup has been incredible for him, and I think it's been incredible for Unai Emery, and I think he's been a really big part of that, and it's a big reason as to why there is so much speculation surrounding Douglas Luiz in terms of obviously his future and where his future may lie, with a possible move to Arsenal materialising in January when the winter transfer window comes around. I think he's been a massive part of Aston Villa's season. He's a massive cog in the Unai Emery machine, and I think he's rightfully in this team, or at least deserves to be within the conversation. If you can maybe move one or two factors around, you'll obviously move on to the midfield, where you'll see that there is Declan freaking Rice. No one mentioned his price tag. A lot of other players, they'll get their price tag mentioned a lot, like Rasmus Højlund, Darwin Núñez, players like that, Anthony. Why did they get their price tag mentioned? Because they're not playing at the peak of their powers or where they expect to be for the price that was splashed on them. This man, however, doesn't. He doesn't get his price tag mentioned. And why is that? Because he is proving time and time again why he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, why he is incredible. And by the way, I could have easily put Rodri in, because you see that with City, without him, City are a completely different team. You see that. City have lost their Premier League games when Rodri hasn't been in the team. That's how important Rodri is. I could have easily put Rodri in, but because I think he's missed quite a few games through injury, suspensions, and what have you, I don't necessarily think it's probably fair to put him necessarily in that position. Declan Rice, though, you see how important he is to Arsenal. And, you know, he's not going to get you a ton of goals. He's not going to get you a ton of assists. But he is going to come up clutch in big moments. And he has done time and time again for Arsenal. He got a match-winning goal against Manchester United, the goal that put Arsenal 2-1 ahead. He got the match-winning goal against Luton in the 97th minute to help Arsenal win 4-3. Defensively, he is superb. He's superb going forward. He's superb at doing his job in the middle of the pitch, which is to just keep things simple, keep things ticking over, break up play when matters most, cover as much ground as possible. This guy is phenomenal, and this guy seemingly is a bargain at over 100 million, and is seemingly worth every single penny of it. This guy is well and truly deserving of his role in this team, and that is why he deserves to be in this position. Now, like I say, you can probably throw Rodri in the CDM role over Douglas Luiz. I do think there is a conversation for that to happen. You can maybe even put Declan Rice as a CDM and maybe have someone else different in this central midfield. I know the likes of James Maddison before his injury was absolutely fantastic for Spurs, and I think it's difficult for him to miss out. But I do think that because of his injury, he is forced to miss out only just. Dominic Szoboszlai started off the season very well for Liverpool. He's dropped off in recent weeks, which is why he's not in the squad. There have also been other factors. You can maybe look at Bruno Fernandes, although maybe he has been a little bit more inconsistent this season in certain games. Maybe not necessarily his fault. Maybe it's the fault of the manager and the team. But he's still going pretty strong considering the circumstances that he in particular is finding himself in right now. And can maybe look at other players in there. Cole Palmer, a bright light in an otherwise dark season for Chelsea so far. But instead, I've decided to go with a certain John McGinn. Underrated performer in my opinion. Again, another big part of the Unai Emery machine at Aston Villa. A big part of the reason why he's caught clutch so many times for Villa and as to why Villa have such a phenomenal home record. John McGinn, for me, deserves to be within a shout for this team. May not necessarily get in. I'm open for debate on this particular position. Like I say, I still think you can maybe consider James Maddison, even though he's been injured for a big part of this season. But for me, John McGinn deserves to be within the conversation, and rightfully so. Come up clutch so many times, scored a couple of important goals, including the winner against Arsenal, of course. This guy deserves to be within the conversation. I like John McGinn. I like what he's done this season. I like how much he's grown under Unai Emery's management. I like what this guy has achieved. And therefore, I think rightfully so deserves to be within a shout of this team. Moving on to the wingers. First up, without question, Mohamed Salah goes in. Without question. This is the man who continues to go from strength to strength. This is the man who continues season after season to hit the consistent heights that he has set before him. This is the man who continues to defy age, defy logic, defy reasoning, and continues to break records, continues to score goals, continues to assist, and still this guy is somehow underrated by many. This man right here, a man I love, a man I respect, a man that I cannot thank enough for over these past several years of him being at my club, deserves the world. Really does deserve the world. And like I say, this season, he's got the most goal contributions out of everybody. He deserves to be within this squad, no matter what. Yes, there are a few honourable mentions. You can maybe look at the likes of Jared Bowen. You can maybe look at the likes of Bukayo Saka. There may be one or two other names on that list as well, but none of them even come close or compare to Mohamed Salah. He has been absolutely phenomenal. And then the left wing position was a little bit more tricky because there are a few consistent performers out there. And I wasn't going to shoehorn anybody in. I should say that right here. That I wasn't going to shoehorn anybody in. So I wasn't going to put like a striker as a left winger, as so many times and so often that I see when anybody does like these sort of first combined 11s, or whenever everyone does like a team of the season, they always for some reason shoehorn players into these positions. I could have gone with Son. I could have, but predominantly this season, Postecoglou has used him as a striker rather than his natural left wing position. So I didn't really feel like I could use Son in that aspect because he's been used mainly as a striker. Gabriel Martinelli hasn't quite hit the heights of last season. Luis Diaz hasn't been as effective as we know he can be. Obviously, no one from Chelsea's really been that great. I could have put Jeremy Doku in. He's hit the ground running since obviously arriving at Manchester City this past summer. He was a big possibility for me. But I decided to go with a bit of an underrated one. Now, I've said time and time again, I don't really rate Anthony Gordon. I'll say time and time again that I don't really rate him. I think he's made of paper. Goes down really easily. Former Everton player. But no. I've said time and time again, I don't really see the big hype of Anthony Gordon. I see that he's got a lot of pace about him. But I questioned his end product. Well, this season, his end product seems to have been improved upon. And I've got to obviously give credit for that. And I've got to give credit where credit is due. I think he's been a pretty consistent performer for Newcastle this season in what has been a very inconsistent hit and miss season for the Magpies so far. He's played 18 games, made 18 appearances, and has scored 6 goals and assisted 6 times for the Magpies across those appearances. Like I say, I don't think it's been that great of a season for left wingers as a whole. There is probably someone that my mind is escaping from that maybe could be in the conversation more, but I do think Anthony Gordon is a bit of an underrated hit this season and someone that I think deserves to be within the conversation. Like I said, I don't think the likes of Martinelli, Diaz, Sterling, anybody else, Eze maybe, anybody else has been as consistent as maybe him. So I do feel like he deserves to be in the conversation. And like I say, with 12 goal contributions in 18 appearances, it's not bad for someone that I personally didn't really rate when he made his move from Everton to Newcastle. But I think he has been a bright light in an otherwise inconsistent season for the Magpies so far. And finally up front, it's got to be Erling Haaland. It's got to be. It's got to be Erling Haaland. Again, there are honourable mentions to this. You can maybe look at the likes of Ollie Watkins, who has got a phenomenal record right now in the Premier League. Very good goal contributions record going for him right now. He just very much deserves to be in the conversation. But for me, it's got to be the man who's got the most goals this season. I don't think he's even been at his best this season. And that's the frightening thing, is that City haven't been at their best. Haaland hasn't been at their best. At his best, sorry. And yet, he is still the top goal scorer in the Premier League. That's frightening to me. That's frightening to me that if Guardiola can get it right in the second half of the season, if City can regroup, regather, and maybe even strengthen in January, if that is the case, it frightens me of how well and how good this City side can then become, and it frightens me how many goals that this absolute machine can get. Like I say, I don't think he's been at his best this season, but the goals are what you're judged on as a striker, and that is why he gets the nod just over Ollie Watkins, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's harsh on Ollie Watkins because he's been brilliant, and I think I've always found Watkins to be a pretty underrated kind of performer up front. But for me, Haaland just about gets the nod for having the most goals this season. Like I say, I'm not going to shoehorn anybody into a position that they're not comfortable. I could have easily put Ollie Watkins as left winger, but it wouldn't have been natural and it wouldn't have been right. So, Haaland for me gets the nod. Most goals this season. Pretty simple and pretty easy kind of way to look at it, in all honesty. But Watkins does deserve a huge honourable mention. As does Son, of course. As does Son Heung-min, who, like I say, has been predominantly used as a striker this season rather than a left winger. Been a big part of the Spurs squad, really taken to his leadership role of being captain for Spurs, but Haaland, for me, just gets the nod. And that's it. That's the combined 11 for team of the season so far. Those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of my team of the season so far? What do you make of everything that I've said about the players? Do you have your own thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, and of course your overall team of the season so far will make for great and interesting reading, I'm sure, down below in the comment section. So do get involved down there. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you all again soon in a video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for stopping by and watching. Have a good rest of your day. Take care. Speak to you again soon.